He stood there, wine dripping from his chin, staining the only suit his father had left him. They laughed, they pointed, they called him garbage in front of the city's elite, unaware that the hand they just bit was the only hand holding them up from the abyss. They thought they were signing an $800 million lifeline. They didn't know the man they just destroyed was the ink, the paper, and the money behind the deal. Phones were recording. The silence that followed the laughter was heavy, like the air before a tornado touches down. Something shifted in Elias's eyes, a light going out, a bridge burning. He turned and walked away without a single syllable of defense, and the fallout began before the elevator doors even closed. Before we descend into the chaos, we'd love for you to hit that subscribe button. Your support fuels us, it means the world to our team, and it helps us bring you even more powerful stories of justice served cold. Now let's begin. You know those nights where the air feels too thin? Where the luxury feels like a costume draped over a rotting skeleton? That was the atmosphere inside the Apex Sky Lounge on the 90th floor of the Meridian Tower. It was a night designed to scream success, but it only whispered desperation. Elias Thorne stepped out of the service elevator, not because he had to, but because he preferred the quiet. He stepped into the periphery of the ballroom, a shadow in a room full of peacocks. He wore a charcoal suit that was well kept but clearly dated, the fabric slightly worn at the elbows, the cut from a decade ago. It was clean. It was respectful. But in this room, respectful wasn't enough. You had to shine. You had to scream wealth. Elias didn't scream. He barely whispered. Crystal chandeliers, shaped like weeping willows, dripped light onto tables covered in silk. A jazz band played in the corner, the bassist sweating as he tried to keep the tempo upbeat for a crowd that looked ready to eat each other alive. The smell was a nauseating mix of truffle oil, expensive gin, and fear. On every massive LED screen surrounding the room, one logo pulsed with a hypnotic rhythm, Sterling Vanguard Systems, and below it, the number that had everyone salivating, $800,000. It was the merger of the century, the Project Osiris deal, the only thing saving Sterling Vanguard from total bankruptcy, though no one would admit that out loud. The investor was a ghost, a holding company known only as the Architect. Tonight was the night the architect was supposed to reveal himself and sign the papers. The staff moved like terrified mice along the walls. The guests, hedge fund managers, tech moguls, socialites, strutted like they had personally printed the money. Elias moved through the crowd with a slow, deliberate gait. His hands were deep in his pockets, his thumb tracing the screen of his phone. He wasn't looking at the screens. He was looking at faces. He was looking for humanity. Security had been a hurdle. The guard at the VIP entrance, a man with a neck thicker than his head, had sneered at Elias. "Deliveries are in the back, pal." Elias had simply produced a matte black card with a gold-embossed geometric shape. The guard had scanned it, frowned when the machine flashed green, and begrudgingly stepped aside. "Don't touch the guests," he had warned. Inside, the energy was hostile. A woman in a dress made entirely of crushed diamonds bumped into Elias. She didn't apologize. She pulled her purse closer to her chest, scanning him with a look of pure disgust. "Careful," she hissed to her husband. "They're letting anyone in off the street now, probably looking for dropped wallets." Her husband laughed, a sharp barking sound. "Just ignore him. The help is getting bolder these days." Elias said nothing. He didn't flinch. He simply shifted his weight and signaled for a glass of tap water at the bar. The bartender served 3 other people, who arrived after him, before slamming a lukewarm glass of water in front of Elias without a coaster. $5, the bartender muttered. Elias placed a $10 bill on the counter. "Keep it. I don't need your charity," the bartender sneered, sweeping the money into the tip jar anyway. At the far end of the room, the lights dimmed. A spotlight hit the stage, cutting through the darkness like a blade. The chatter died down, replaced by a hungry silence. "Ladies and gentlemen," the announcer's voice boomed, vibrating in the chests of everyone present. "Please welcome the visionaries of our future, the power couple of the decade, Mr. Julian Sterling and his wife, Mrs. Elena Sterling." The applause was raucous, practiced, and desperate. Julian Sterling walked out first. He was a handsome man in the way a shark is handsome, sleek, sharp, and predatory. His tuxedo was midnight blue, tailored to the millimeter. Beside him, Elena Sterling floated in a gown of emerald silk. She waved with a wrist dripping in borrowed diamonds, her smile painted on with surgical precision. They looked like royalty. But Elias, standing by a marble pillar in the shadows, saw the truth. He saw the sweat beading on Julian's temple. He saw the way Elena's hand gripped Julian's arm, her knuckles white, nails digging into his fabric. They were terrified. If the architect didn't sign tonight, they were finished. Their mansions, their cars, their reputation, it would all be seized by morning. Tonight, Julian spoke into the microphone, his voice smooth as oil. We make history. $800 million. A partnership that validates everything we have built. We built this with blood and sweat, Elena added, leaning into the mic, her voice trembling with false emotion. And tonight, we welcome our mystery partner to the family. Elias watched them. He had been watching them for months. He had seen their financials. He knew they were cooking the books. He knew they treated their staff like cattle. But he had hoped, perhaps foolishly, that beneath the greed, there was competence. He was here to make a final judgment. The judgment came sooner than he expected. Elena's eyes, scanning the crowd for important faces, landed on Elias. Her smile faltered. It twitched, then dissolved into a sneer of confusion. She leaned over to Julian, whispering aggressively. Richard, look. By the pillar. Is that a sanitation worker? Julian squinted against the spotlight. His jaw tightened. The stress of the evening, the fear of the deal, it all needed a release valve. He needed someone to kick to feel tall again. He stepped off the stage, bypassing the stairs, hopping down with an energetic arrogance. He beelined for Elias. The crowd parted, sensing blood. Excuse me, Julian said, his voice loud enough to carry over the jazz band. You? Yes, you in the suit from the thrift store. Elias turned slowly. He met Julian's gaze with a calmness that should have warned the CEO, but Julian was too blinded by ego to see it. I'm fine where I am, Elias said softly, just observing the evening. Julian let out a laugh that sounded like glass breaking. Observing? This is a private gala, not a zoo. Who let you in? Security. He waved a hand dismissively. Someone get this man a towel. He looks like he walked here in the humidity. You're sweating up my atmosphere. A ripple of laughter went through the room. People pointed. Phones came out. The camera lights turned on, eager to capture the humiliation. Actually, a man near the front chuckled, I think he's waiting for the buffet to open. Look at those shoes. He hasn't bought new shoes since the recession. Elena approached now, the click-clack of her heels sounding like gunfire. She grabbed a glass of heavy Cabernet Sauvignon from a passing tray. She didn't look at the server. She just snatched it. She stopped inches from Elias. The smell of her expensive perfume was choking. Listen to me, she said, her voice dripping with condescension. If you wanted a job, you apply online. You don't crash a gala. It's pathetic. It's sad, really. Elias looked at her. I'm not looking for work, Elena. The use of her first name stunned her. Her eyes widened, then narrowed into slits of fury. You do not address me by my name. You address me as Mrs. Sterling. You are nothing. You are a stain on this evening. She thrust the wine glass toward him. Here, make yourself useful. Take this to table 4. The investors are thirsty. Go. Elias didn't move. He didn't reach for the glass. He stood like a statue, his eyes filled with a profound, crushing disappointment. No, he said simply. Elena gasped. The room went silent. Excuse me? Julian stepped forward, his face turning red. You don't say no to us. We own this city. You own debt, Elias said, his voice rising just enough to be heard by the circle forming around them. You own illusions, Julian snapped. The fear of bankruptcy, the stress, the arrogance, it all exploded. He grabbed the wine glass from his wife's hand. "Let me handle the trash," Julian snarled. He raised the glass high, making sure everyone was watching, making sure the cameras had a good angle. "This is what we do to dirt that thinks it's gold." He tilted his wrist. The dark red liquid cascaded out. It wasn't a splash, it was a pour. It hit Elias's shoulder, soaked into the gray fabric of his father's suit, ran down his white shirt, and dripped onto his shoes. It was warm and sticky. The crowd gasped. Then, someone giggled. Then, the laughter spread. It was a cruel, hyena-like sound. "Oops," Julian mocked, tossing the empty glass onto the carpet where it didn't break, just rolled away sadly. "Now you match the carpet. Get out, before I have you thrown off the balcony." Elena was smirking, a cruel, satisfied twist of her red lips. "And send us the bill for dry cleaning," she laughed. "Oh, wait, that suit isn't worth the cost of the chemicals." Elias stood there for a long moment. He took a handkerchief from his pocket and slowly wiped a drop of wine from his cheek. He didn't look angry. He looked resolved. He looked like a judge who had just signed a death warrant. He looked Julian in the eye. Then Elena. "Enjoy the wine," Elias whispered. "It's the last thing you'll ever taste on the company card." He turned around. The crowd parted instantly, afraid of the wine, afraid of the strange energy radiating off him. He walked to the exit with a dignity that silenced the room. As he pushed through the double doors, a young server, a girl of no more than 19, looked at him with tears in her eyes. "I'm so sorry, sir," she whispered. Elias paused. He reached into his wet pocket, pulled out a wet $100 bill, and pressed it into her hand. "Not your fault. Leave early tonight, kid. It's going to get ugly." He walked out. The hallway was cool. The silence of the corridor was a blessing. Elias didn't stop moving. He reached the elevator, pressed the button, and as the doors slid shut, sealing him away from the monsters in the penthouse, he pulled out his phone. He dialed a single number. It rang once. "Yes, Mr. Thorne?" The voice on the other end was sharp, professional. "It's done," Elias said, his voice flat. "Did you sign the papers, sir? The transfer is queued." "Kill it," Elias commanded. "Kill the deal. Pull the funding. Initiate the breach of character clause in the pre-agreement and release the statement to the press. Now." "Sir, that will bankrupt them instantly. They are leveraged to the hilt." "I know," Elias said, watching the floor numbers tick down. "Do it, and freeze their personal assets attached to the collateral. Everything." "Understood. Executing now." The call ended. Elias leaned his head back against the elevator wall. He closed his eyes. He didn't feel happy. He felt tired. Back in the ballroom, the party was trying to restart. Julian was high-fiving a hedge fund manager. Elena was ordering another bottle of champagne. "Did you see his face?" Julian bragged, laughing. "Like a kicked puppy. That's how you handle problems. You crush them." Elena nodded, sipping her drink. He ruined the aesthetic. It had to be done. Suddenly, the music cut out. It wasn't a fade-out. It was a hard cut. The jazz band stopped playing, looking confused. The lights in the room flickered once, twice, then went to full brightness, the ugly, harsh cleaning lights usually reserved for 3 a.m. A low murmur rippled through the crowd. Julian frowned. "What is this? Who touched the lights?" He marched toward the stage. "Fix the mood lighting! Now!" But nobody was moving. The staff was frozen. A man in a gray suit, Julian's chief financial officer, came sprinting across the room. He was pale. Sweat was pouring down his face, ruining his collar. He looked like he had seen a ghost. He scrambled onto the stage and grabbed Julian's arm. "Get off me!" Julian hissed, shaking him off. "You're making a scene!" "Julian, look at the screens!" the CFO gasped, pointing a trembling finger. "Look at the damn screens!" Julian turned. Elena turned. 200 guests turned. The massive LED screens that had been pulsing with the $800,000 figure blinked black. Then red text appeared, scrolling, fast, deal terminated, investor withdrawal, immediate. Reason: unethical conduct, failure of leadership, Funds frozen. A scream stuck in Elena's throat. "What is that?" Julian screamed, his voice cracking. "Is this a hack? Turn it off! Cut the power!" "It's not a hack!" the CFO yelled back, his voice breaking into a sob. "I just got the email. The architect pulled out. The money is gone, Julian. It's all gone. The wires were recalled." "Who is the architect?" Julian roared, grabbing the CFO by the lapels. "Get him on the phone! I'll kill him!" "You just did," a voice shouted from the crowd. It was a young man holding a smartphone high in the air. "Check your Twitter feed, Julian. It's trending, wine billionaire." Julian let go of the CFO. He pulled out his own phone. His hands were shaking so violently he dropped it twice. When he finally unlocked it, a video was playing. It was a high-definition video taken from the front row. It showed Julian. It showed Elena. It showed the wine flying through the air. It showed the quiet, dignified man in the gray suit taking the abuse. But the caption was the bullet to the heart. The real architect. "I went to meet my new partners tonight to sign an $800 million deal. I wanted to see who they were when the cameras weren't rolling. I found out. Sterling Vanguard is dead. I will not fund bullies. Elias Thorne." The photo attached to the profile was unmistakable. It was the man in the gray suit. The man with the wine stain. Julian looked at the phone. He looked at the door where Elias had exited. "No," he whispered. The word came out as a squeak. "That was him? That beggar was Thorne?" Elena collapsed. Her legs just gave out. She fell onto the stage in a heap of emerald silk, sobbing hysterically. "We poured wine on him," she wailed. "We poured wine on the money." The room erupted into chaos. It wasn't polite whispers anymore. It was a stampede. "Sell!" someone shouted into their phone. "Dump all Sterling stock, now, before the market opens." "Get me out of here!" the woman in the diamond dress shrieked. "I don't want to be associated with these people." Investors were running for the exits. The board members who were present were already huddled in a corner, drafting their resignation letters on their BlackBerries. Julian stood alone on the stage. The cleaning lights made him look old, pale, and sick. He watched his empire crumble in real time. He looked at the empty glass on the floor. The fallout was nuclear. By sunrise, the story wasn't just city news, it was global. The video of the wine splash had 50 million views. The hashtag karma was trending worldwide. Sterling Vanguard stock plummeted 75% in pre-market trading. By the opening bell, trading was halted. The banks called in their loans at 9 a.m. By 10 a.m., the seizure notices were pasted on the glass doors of the headquarters. Julian and Elena didn't go home. They couldn't. The press was camped on their lawn. They sat in a hotel room near the airport, watching their lives disintegrate on CNN. "We have to fix this," Elena whispered, her eyes red and swollen. "We have to apologize. He's a businessman. He'll understand business." "He's not a businessman," Julian said, staring at the wall. "He's an executioner." "We have to try, Richard. We have nothing left." Driven by desperation, they found Elias's address. It wasn't a penthouse. It was a sprawling estate outside the city, surrounded by trees and a place of peace. They drove their last remaining car, a rental, to the gate. Elias was in the front garden. He wasn't wearing a suit. He was wearing jeans and a t-shirt, pruning rose bushes. He looked calm, happy even. Julian and Elena ran to the gate. They gripped the iron bars like prisoners. "Mr. Thorne," Julian yelled. "Elias, please." Elias didn't look up immediately. He finished cutting a dead branch from a rose bush. He placed the shears down. He wiped his hands on a rag. Then he walked slowly to the gate. He didn't open it. "We are so sorry," Elena sobbed, tears streaming down her face, ruining her makeup. "We didn't know. We were stressed. It was a mistake. Please don't destroy thousands of jobs because of one mistake." "We can make it right," Julian pleaded, his arrogance completely gone, replaced by a pathetic groveling. "Reopen the deal. We will step down. We will give you full control. Just save the company. Save us." Elias looked at them. He looked at the desperation in their eyes, the fear. He felt no joy in it. only a dull sadness that people like this existed. The jobs are safe, Elias said quietly. I bought the debt from the bank this morning. The company is mine now. The workers keep their jobs. Julian's face lit up with hope. Oh, thank God, thank you, so we can… You? Elias interrupted. No, you are done. But… We built it, Julian whispered. You built a facade, Elias said. I stood in that room and I gave you a choice. I gave you every chance to show basic human decency. Not to a billionaire, but to a man you thought was nothing. That is the only test that matters. Please, Elena begged. We have nowhere to go. Elias stepped back. He picked up his gardening shears. You poured wine on the only hand that was reaching out to save you, Elias said, his voice finalizing their fate. Now you have to drink the vinegar. Goodbye, Julian. Goodbye, Elena. He turned his back on them. Wait, Julian screamed, shaking the gates. You can't do this. Do you know who I am? Elias didn't turn around. He just walked back to his roses. I know exactly who you are, Elias called out over his shoulder. You're a memory. He disappeared into his house. The heavy oak door shut with a sound that echoed like a gavel. Julian and Elena were left standing on the dusty road, silence surrounding them. The wind blew through the trees, cold and indifferent. They had nothing. No money, no reputation, no friends. They had climbed to the top of the world only to push themselves off the edge. It's a brutal reminder that the toes you step on today might be attached to the ass you have to kiss tomorrow. Or in this case, the hand you bite might be the one holding the rope. If this story of instant karma and justice satisfied you, make sure you're following us. We post stories like this every week. Share this with someone who needs a reminder to stay humble, stay kind, stay watching, because you never know who is really in the room with you.